So, Waiters, and welcome to the third video on the verse literature of Virgil's Aeneid Book 6. So, there's been quite a large gap between the end of section 2 and the start of section 3. In the meantime, Aeneas has entered the actual underworld and has spoken to various dead figures from his past, but we're finally getting to the actual reason that he got down here in the first place, to talk to his father. So, at Pater Anchises, but his father Anchises, Lustrabat, was reviewing, verb all the way down here, the animas, the souls, inclusas, enclosed, penitus, deep, in a virenti convale, in a green valley. Those souls which were ituras, future participle of eo, about to go or going to go, ad lumen, to the light superum, above. And how was he doing this? He was recolens, contemplating, studiously, or with eagerness, and was recensebating, and was recounting forte by chance, omnemque numorum, all the number suorum of his own, literally masculine plural things, but therefore just family, and his caros nepotes, his dear grandsons and descendants more broadly, the nepotes, indeed the omnem suorum, all of his own, and down here the virum, they're all the same people, Anchises' descendants, i.e. some Romans. So the nepotes, his dear grandsons, and the fata, and the fates, and fortunas, and fortunes, virum, should be virorum, of those men, and their mores, their ways, their morals, and their manus, literally their hands, but the things that their hands are going to do. So Aeneas comes down, he finds Anchises in the middle of examining all of these Roman souls which are about to reincarnate. Speaking of reincarnation, that might have surprised some of you, as not a particularly common thing in media depictions of Greco-Roman mythology, but they don't have a single rule book. And actually, reincarnation was fairly common. Orphism is the oldest Hellenic religion that we know that had it. Pythagoras and Plato wrote quite a lot about it, Pythagoras being the triangle guy. And in book 6, Virgil has reincarnation. That's how it works. And souls drink from the river of forgetfulness before they go up into the world above. So it's reincarnation, but you don't get to remember everything beforehand. So continuing, isque ubi, and when he, i.e. Anchises, videt Aenean, saw Aeneas tendentem adversem, heading towards brackets him, per gramina, across the grass, he tetendit alacris, he eager held out. Notice we have tetendit and tendentum, they are part of the same word. Tendo is quite a broad word that has a lot of different derivatives in English, from tension to intend. Basic meaning about like stretching or striving towards something. So he eagerly stretched out or held out ultras palmas, both his palms, and lacrimae, tears, effusae, streamed over his genis, his cheeks, and his vox, his voice, excedit ore, slipped from his mouth. Notice a lovely bit of positional play here. His voice slipped from his mouth being left at the end there to sort of show how his voice comes earlier in the sentence. Lovely bit of positional play to show how excited Anchises is to finally see his son. So then we get Anchises' first words to Aeneas. Veniste, have you come, tandem, at last? And has your pietas, your piety, expectata, expected or watched out for by tua parenti, by your father, wicket, defeated your durum ita, your tough journey, i.e., have you gotten here, and can I thank your piety for this reason? Data, is it given, brackets, to me, to tuere, passive infinitive, but a deponent verb, so not, to see, nate, son, tua ora, your face, et audere, and to hear, et redere, and reply to your notas vocas, your familiar calls or voices, i.e., Anchises like, oh my god, you're here, you're finally here, can I actually now talk to you again? Yay! It's quite cute. Equidem, truly, ducebam, I was taking it, sic animo, thus in my mind, and was rebare, and was calculating, futurum, what would be the future, denumerans, counting off the tempora, the times or the hours, nec me cura, nor has my care fefelit me, deceived me. That is to say, he's been like the image of him at a calendar, just ticking off the days till he finally gets to see his son again in the underworld. Because prophecy? It's a very cute image of Anchises being really excited to see his son. So, brief bit of background to help you understand what's going on here. Aeneas and co flee Troy as it's being annihilated by the Greeks, sail up and then down the Aegean, briefly stopping off at Crete and then various places on the west coast of Greece before sailing down underneath the heel of Italy. Brief stops in at Sicily. Anchises dies on Sicily. Shortly before Aeneas and co get knocked off course by a storm as they're intending to go around. They land in Carthage. Now, this nearly spells the end of the journey for them. Carthage is currently being ruled by Queen Dido, and there's a whole huge backstory there, which I'm going to go into later, as to why Aeneas and co nearly just settle there and like join their kingdoms together. He only leaves after he maybe sort of marries Dido, bit complicated, when the gods basically give him a kick and they're like, oi, you've got a job. So when Anchises says, has your piety defeated your tough journey, this may be that reference as to, has your sense of duty, is that the reason why I am now seeing that you've actually sailed up the coast and they've got to Cumae, where the Sibyl is, and they've only got a little bit further to get to Latium, where Rome will eventually be founded. Anchises continues. Vectum, borne, carried across quas terras, what lands, et per quanta aequora, and across what great seas, ego accipio te, do I receive you, do I welcome you. Jactatum, thrown about by quantis periculis, by what great dangers, nate, son. Notice how he's repeating that word. Quam metui, how I feared. Also notice the lovely list of rhetorical questions. How I feared. This line's quite difficult to translate. The translation we're going to go with here is what nocerent harm the regna Libiae, the kingdoms of Italy, might do tibi to you. Literally, lest they might harm you what? Which doesn't really make sense. This is Dido, by the way. This is meant to be Aeneas. Dido very nearly successfully persuades Aeneas to stay. So the harm is twofold. One, that Dido and co might have just killed the Trojan refugees, and two, once she decides not to kill them, that the Trojan refugees might decide to stay. Aeneas replies to his father, Ille autem, that man, however, brackets, replied, tua tristis imago, your sad image, i.e. the thought of you in my head as you were dead. Tua genitor, yours, father. Occurrens, occurring, brackets to me, Scipius, so often. It addaget me, drove me to tendere haec limina, to strive to these shores. Notice another use of that word. My classes, my ships, stand or lie or are moored on the Sale Tyrrhenio, on the Tyrrhenian Sea. Da, give, brackets me, your dextram, your right hand, genitor, father, to jungere, to clasp. And ne subtrahe, do not pull away, te yourself, from nostro amplexu, from our embrace or my embrace. Fun fact, by the way, Da is probably one of the first words of a lot of little Roman babies. It's give, and it's a nice simple word. So very cute image. Aeneas, he's like not bragging, but more looking for approval here. His father's like, I finally got here. My ships are in Italy. I'm here to Italy on Cumae, Haec Limae, these shores. Now come give me a hug. And then we get genuinely quite a sad little scene. Memorans, reminiscing, remembering, sick, thus, his aura rigebat, his face was wet, with largo fletu, with abundant weeping. Simul, at the same time. Now that could be like at the same time as he's speaking, he's crying, or also just that Anchises at the same time as Aeneas are both crying. Tur, 3 times ibi there, conatus brackets est, he tried to dare his brachia, to put, or literally give, his arms, circum, his collo, around his neck. Tur, 3 times, imago, that image, comprensa frustra, grasped at frustra, in vain, effugit, escaped, or perhaps slipped through, his manus, his hands, pa, like levibus ventis, light breezes, and similima, most similar to volucrique somnu, to winged dream. Now, this might be a reference to the actual god Hypnos, who famously was represented as winged, or more generally just the trying to grab a ghost is like trying to grab a dream. The more you struggle for it, the more it slips away from you, and afterwards you never quite remember exactly what it was. It's a really cute, quite tragic little bit here of Aeneas trying to hug his dad, but of course his dad is dead. His dad is an imago, an image, a ghost. Next line, in terra, meanwhile. Now that kind of implies that there may be a gap there, that something was happening, then that meanwhile Aeneas was crying, but probably not. It could be used to show a change of scene, but I think there's good odds that like Aeneas is trying to hug his dad, and it's really quite sad. And he obviously realizes he can't hug a ghost. He sort of turns away and finally starts looking at the actual countryside that he's in, because he's been paying purely attention to his dad, and he's trying to control his emotions, because he's really genuinely grieving here. His dad didn't die that long ago. It's a very tragic scene. Aeneas videt, Aeneas saw, in a reducta vale, in a remote valley, a seclusum nimus, a secluded grove, et virgulta, and bushes sonantia, making sound or rustling, in the silvis, in the woods, and the amnem lethaemque, and the river Lethe, one of the rivers of the underworld, the river of forgetfulness, quae praenatat, which flowed in front of the placidas domos, of these placid homes. Really slow, beautiful image of Aeneas in the Elysium field, which is basically paradise, looking away from his father for the first time and looking out at this gorgeous countryside. That Virgil has previously written a lot about gorgeous countrysides, so this is his jam. Virgil continues with his description. Hunc circum, around this brackets grove, innumerable gentes, tribes and populi and peoples were vollebanting, were darting, were flying. This is the word volare, meaning I fly, which is completely unrelated to your GCSE vocabulary word wallow, meaning I want, which is much more common. And velud, just as. So that's another indication that we're going to be heading into another simile. Similes are always really useful to talk about, particularly when they're longer and more detailed, like here. In the pratis, in the meadows, ubi, when, on a serenae aestate, on a serene summer's day, the apes, the bees, incident, settle on various floribus flowers, and they funduntur, and they stream, circum, around the candida lilia, the white lilies. Omnis, all the campus, the plain, strepit, hummed with their murmuring, Virgil loves using bees. Tons and tons of similes involving bees. Bees are quite useful in terms of similes and metaphors because they have an organized tribe, they're very busy, they get things done, they have a monarchy. Really, really useful for analogies. So, good section to learn this one. Aeneas horrescet, he trembled at the subito viso, at the sudden sight. So horrescet looks like horrified, but it's not really horrified, it's more like shocked. Root word here is about I bristle, as in the back of your neck when the hairs stand up. He's looking and he's just like, oh my god, there are so many people on this plane. It's just stretching out off into the distance. This is the underworld. It's big. And Incius, unknowing or in ignorance, he recurred. He asked about the causas, the causes. Quiescent, what were ere those flumina rivers puro far off? Way qui or who were those weary, those men complerenting the repants, filling the banks in tanto agmine, in so great a procession? So Aeneas is sort of looking around going, who is all these people? And there you have it, section 3. Quite long, but quite dramatic, quite tragic. Anchises, the father, finally gets to see his son Aeneas again. Uh, they are overjoyed to see each other, exchanging words of love and say, yeah, you kept me going, I'm so happy to be here. They try to hug, but of course they fail because Anchises is dead. He's a ghost. They can't do it. It makes me wonder, in fact, about Virgil's own family life, whether he's taking any of this from his own family, because he's really getting a lot of emotion into this. It's the kind of thing an examiner might reasonably ask questions about. How does Virgil make this section emotional? And then we start to get this introduction to the Elysium, which will be part of what we're talking about in section 4. Hope that helps. Thank you very much.